Yeah, we are live. Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this webinar. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in for yet another episode of Pitch Down Product Webinar, where we bring in amazing products, and this is the webinar for that product to explore. So we are bringing in one amazing product that is Audio Harvest, and to explain that product. Uh, the team of Audio Harvest is going to join us today, and we will go deep dive into the product. What are the features that this product is offering, and all the plans and pricing that we have listed on our website. So let me invite the guests. So we have Dieter and Dominic. So guys, could you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Dominic, I'll let you
Uh,
start.
Okay, Dominic.
okay. Hi, nice to meet everyone. Yeah, I'm Dominic Finney. My background is in startups. So previously to founding Audio Harvest, I founded technology consultancy in the UK, which we expanded over Europe and eventually sold to a US business. Came to found Audio Harvest for two reasons. One, I'm passionate about audio. I really enjoy it. Work with a number of major clients in this area, such as Acast and Pandora. And I also wanted to build a SaaS business because previously the business I built had been very much in the data and the consultancy space. So it's just been great fun working with Dieter, who's on the technology side, and creating this great business together.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Dieter, over to you.
Yes, so I'm Dieter van der Walle. My background is mostly in tech. I've been doing software development for almost 20 years now. I am originally from Belgium, but 5 years ago I moved to Stockholm to work for Spotify, and I worked for Spotify for 4 years. But then I was
Awesome.
looking for a new challenge, and I ran into Dominic, and Dominic had a great idea for this business, and I really loved the idea, and that's how we started working together. And we've been at it for over 2 years now. So me doing mostly the tech side of the business, and Dominic doing mostly the business side and the marketing side of the business. And yeah, here we are, ready to explain our product.
Yeah, thank you so much for your introduction. And I wanted to, understand the background of the company and how, what was that triggered your mind to, build a product, a beautiful product like Audio Harvest.
It was essentially a very, very simple insight. I've been working with a lot of audio businesses. So I helped Global, which is an international radio conglomerate, build the first digital audio exchange, and worked with Acast to build out their ad server proposition. But during the process of doing that work, I became very aware that there's a huge audio audience out there, but actually businesses communicating with those audiences simply aren't there. So whether it be a small business looking to sell their services or a huge conglomerate looking to communicate with thousands of customers, they just weren't using audio to do that. And so I just got curious. Well, why is that? What's going on here? And essentially chatting to some of the marketeers that I knew and reaching out to them is they just said, it's very complex to do, it's time consuming, it's expensive, it's difficult to get great performance out of this. And I thought, well, there's an opportunity. There's billions of people listening to audio. Marketers want to do it, but it's in the too hard box. So normally when it's in the too hard box, that usually shouts out technology. And so what we started to look at, and this is when I started to chat to Dieter, is well, let's use smart tech to do this. And essentially we came up with a solution, which is we will find content that a client has already created, or make it easy for them to create new content using technology to create that content and then distribute it. And one of the fundamental ways we do that is we take the sunk cost of all of the content clients have created, whether that's news stories, customer success stories, insight pieces, and we transform that using AI technology into audio, and we distribute it on the fly across social, web, and podcast with that. But we also allow them to record audio if they so choose, and also to create audio snippets. So essentially the idea is that we're the always-on audio marketing department for businesses. And that's what we've been doing, and we've kind of been building out some really good relationships with some great businesses, huge businesses, international businesses, but mid-sized businesses, but also startups. So it's a platform and a service that works across the board. So that's essentially where the idea came from.
Awesome. This is a different story. Thank you so much for explaining us what was the thought behind building the beautiful product like Audio Harvest. So before we deep dive into the product demo, let's hear it from the Val. What is this Audio Harvest and what the problem that Audio Harvest is solving for us? Here we go.
Today we're going to turn your blog into a podcast. What's going on, guys? This is Val from PitchGround. If you got something to tell, you write a blog. But did you know that over 1 billion people in the world listen to podcasts, including those 42% of decision makers on LinkedIn? The latest figures show that in the United States, 41% of people listened to a podcast in the last month, and 28% are weekly podcast listeners. It's no surprise that those numbers are climbing daily because the number of mobile devices has skyrocketed in the last decade. We are too busy to read a long article, but we have our ears free when we are traveling to the office, going for a walk, or even making dinner. Alright, so you have your blog written. Now it's time to turn it into a podcast. So how do you do it? First, you get yourself some equipment. High quality mic, headphones, maybe audio interface. Then you spend some extra cash to improve the acoustic properties of your room, kick everyone out of your house, and finally record your podcast. Then you obviously hate how your own voice sounds in record. Do another take, then maybe a few more, and finally realize it's not your mission. You can avoid all that and hire a professional voiceover actor if you are rich enough, because it will cost you around $500 for 5 minutes of audio. Then you finally decide to summon a little help from the modern technologies and use one of those text-to-speech tools. You do all that copy and pasting job, convert your hundreds of articles into hours and hours of audio, then create accounts on all those platforms like Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, etc. And then finally upload your podcast there. You really want to do all that? Audio Harvest will turn your blog into a branded podcast with a minimum effort from your site. Audio Harvest scans a client's website content to recommend the most suitable content to convert to audio. The client selected content is then converted into a company podcast and distributed to iTunes, Spotify, Google, etc. automatically, so you don't have to bother with all those platforms and accounts. Audio Harvest will do it for you automatically. You also have the ability to install an audio player on your website so your visitors can listen to your content. So if you didn't use a podcast as a channel of communication with your audience, definitely start using it. With Audio Harvest, it will be nice and smooth. It won't cost you lots of cash, but it's worth it. Go check out that lifetime deal on pitchground.com and don't miss our use case video where we take a close look at Audio Harvest. That's pretty much it, guys. Love you all. Keep safe. And I see you guys in the next video.
Yeah, as Val said, like with billions of people listening to podcasts, this niche is underrated and not explored much to, fuel your growth of business. And if you are a blog writer or you are a content writer or you are running a content agency, then it must, you should use this kind of tools to convert your blogs into podcasts, because nowadays we see that podcast thing is growing very fast. Right, most of the big companies, big organization, even though the actors, the celebrities are using the podcast as their growth tool, right? And with this tool, you can convert your online published content into a branded company podcast through Audio Harvest. So this is a small explanation from my side about the Audio Harvest. And over to you guys, Dominic and Data.
I'll share my screen for some slides. If I
That would be fantastic. Yeah, please share your screen and show us the demo of the tooling.
It won't let me. This is let me try something else. Hopefully this works. Yes. All right. So Dominic, maybe you can do a little bit of an intro.
Yeah. So just quick announcement, which is we've just awarded from the UK Innovation Awards at the most innovative startup in the audio category, which is great news. So highly competitive area and a really good confirmation that the business is making a difference. And it's great for us that it's in the UK, because that's one of our kind of key markets. US, UK, India, some Middle East countries. These are all kind of really interesting markets for us, but the UK is a great one to start with, to get an award there that kind of validates what we're doing and highlights some of the great innovations we've been up to. And then I'm just going to quickly go through the agenda, and then I'm going to pass over to Dieter. So the key thing we're going to talk about today is just, essentially, how do you get your podcast started, and what are some of the kind of smart tricks you can use to kind of really with making people see and hear about the podcast you've created. So Dieter's going to go through that in detail and do a quick live demo, and I will talk a little bit in the middle about the product and how we use it, and then we'll finish with the usual Q&A and sales pitch from PitchGround. I could talk a little bit about myself. I think I've already done that at the beginning. So my background, essentially, as I said, is started a number of businesses that have exited, worked with some major audio clients in there, and now just on a mission to essentially create a great SaaS-based audio marketing solution for businesses.
So
Dieter,
I think
I'll hand over to you now. I guess you can talk about yourself and then go into the presentation.
Yeah. So a little bit of recap. So I have background in tech, been mostly doing software, and now together with Dominic, started Audio Harvest. So I manage more the tech side of the business, and I'm a big music lover. I'm going to skip over these slides, and I'm going to go to actually, I'm going to explain to you how can you actually make your own podcast. And basically, there's two ways to do that. So, of course, what we do is a fully automated way. We make it really easy to take your existing content and turn it into a podcast. But I'll mostly talk now about, like, if you want to make your own podcast from scratch, like the old-fashioned way, how can you do that? Well, there's a few things you'll need. Of course, you'll need some content, and that's going to be talking points. There's going to be some subjects that you can go deep in, that you can spend like 20 minutes to an hour talking about. And of course, this content has to be engaging. It has to be something that your audience wants to hear, that people are interested in. You're going to need some equipment and some software to actually record and edit your podcast. Then once you have your audio, you're going to want to make a podcast out of that. So you'll need some kind of hosting solution to upload your audio and to actually have a podcast. And after that, you're going to need to distribute your podcast. You're going to want to promote it, do some marketing around your podcast. So I'll delve a little bit deeper on each of these topics. So starting with the podcasts, of course, you probably won't just like turn on your microphone, start recording and start talking. You'll probably want to prepare this a little bit, find a good topic, find some key talking points. You also might think about, is this something that you want to do alone? Are you just going to talk about the subject and like have a bit of a monologue? Or are you going to invite a guest to go deeper on a certain subject, like maybe a subject matter expert, or it could be like just a friend who you can have an interesting discussion with. And you'll probably want to create some kind of like script or some structure to guide you through your podcast. I mean, the worst thing to do is like start talking, then kind of realize that you don't really know where you're going, or like, just completely wander off in all directions. You want to stay a little bit focused and keep the content interesting for your audience. Another thing to think about is, okay, you're going to talk about a subject, you're going to talk about some interesting points, things your audience wants to hear. But if you want to make it really interesting, you can also have like an intro jingle or an outro jingle, or maybe if you between subjects, you could have like a small break with a music segment or something. These are all things that you might prepare in advance. And then when we talk about content, of course, there's not only the things you are talking about, but also once you actually create your podcast, you're going to need a little bit of branding. For example, a logo to put on your podcast. You're going to want to pick a nice title, write a good description that attracts people to listen to your podcast. And you'll probably also want some kind of landing page. So your podcast is probably going to live on Spotify, it's going to live on Apple and all the major podcasting platforms. But it's also good if people type in your podcast, or they search for your podcast, that you have some kind of landing page where you can put the links to the different streaming platforms, or where people can just listen to your podcasts on a web page. So talking about content, these are a lot of the things you might need. Now, when we get to the actual recording of the podcast, how can you do this? Well, if you want to do like the most easy, the simplest solution, basically all that you need is a laptop with a decent microphone, and you start recording, and boom, you're basically off to the races. However, I would not recommend this solution. It will probably not sound very good. I don't know if you ever tried recording your own voice on a laptop. It's good enough for like a presentation or doing Zoom, but actually the quality of the sound is not very great. Also, for example, depending on the quality of the microphone of your laptop, if your laptop starts heating up and the fan starts spinning, all of this you're going to hear in your recording. So the end result will not be very good. Also, if you just start recording, if you just want to record your podcast like in one take, that's going to be very hard. I don't know how good you are at talking about a subject, but most of the time you'll probably make some mistakes, or you'll have like some here and there that you probably want to edit that out later. So like just recording a podcast in one take is probably going to be pretty hard. So how can we do it better? Well, actually, the sound you're hearing now is the sound you're hearing through my laptop. So maybe let's try to make that a little bit better. I'm going to try something fancy here, and I'm going to try to switch to a better microphone. Let's see if this works. So if all is well, can you still hear me? Can somebody confirm that you can still hear me? Can you hear me, Edith? Okay.
Yes.
So now you'll probably hear that my voice sounds a little bit different. So
Yes.
one way to improve the sound is to use a dedicated microphone. For example, this is like a headphone with a built-in microphone, plugs into USB, and the sound quality will typically be a lot better. It also has this like little foam thingy over the microphone that protects against wind noise and stuff like that. But if you have like a really good microphone, you'll probably also want a room that sounds good. Like in this case, the microphone is very close to my mouth, so you don't really hear the room sound, but I'll demonstrate this a little bit later, that like how that sounds.
Okay.
You'll also want a room where the sound sounds good. For example, the room I'm in now is pretty empty, and like the sound reflects off the walls. And if you have a good microphone, you're going to hear all of that. And again, it's not going to sound very professional. But it is a big improvement if you have like a room that is quiet and you don't have outside noise, and there's a lot of furniture, or like you have the drapes on the walls. It's probably going to sound a lot better. And then also, what I said before, you'll probably want some editing software, or as people call it, a digital audio workstation. There are some free ones that are pretty good. Audacity, Reaper are some software you can use for free or almost free. And you also have like the big famous ones like Logic for Apple. You have Ableton that is often used by music producers. Same thing for Cubase. However, these are pretty expensive software packages, but that will allow you to basically record your voice and then edit out the parts you don't want. If you were talking and at some point you went into a subject that's looking back was maybe not that interesting, you can just cut that out. And so doing that, you can basically edit your podcast and make it a lot better. You can also insert jingles or insert a musical break. Also, when recording, what will probably help is a good pair of headphones, because you kind of want to hear while you're talking how you're sounding. Is your is the microphone picking up the sound all right? If there's something on your desk that's buzzing and that's getting picked up by the microphone, you're not going to hear it if you just speak in the microphone. But if you have headphones and you can actually hear what the microphone is hearing, then you will hear this before it becomes a problem. Also, this only works for podcasts where you are alone, because if you were going to record with multiple people, well, you're gonna need more equipment. So let me find my window again to switch slides. So what is like the best solution? The best solution is, of course, you have some kind of like studio environment. I'm going to actually, again, I'm going to go into my studio now. So now I'm in my studio and I'm going to take my professional studio microphone.
It's a practical demo, right? Totally.
Professional. I still need my headphones though.
Okay.
Now I'm in a super professional, I have a super professional microphone. This is going through an audio interface, also something you'll need once you buy like a good microphone, or you have multiple microphones. You're gonna want like either a really good audio interface that can plug all of these things in, or you might want like a mixer so everybody can like pick how loud the sound is in their headphones. So this is a good microphone. You can also see I have this little pop screen. So what this does, if I remove this, if I say words that have like P in it, or like the hissing sounds, you can hear now that sounds really bad. The microphone picks all of this up, and this pop filter will basically prevent that these sounds get picked up. But you can also hear now, so this microphone is very sensitive, but the sound is not necessarily better, because I am here, actually I'm not in a real studio, I am in a pretty bad sounding room. And also, like, there's birds outside my window, my girlfriend is watching TV, maybe my dog will bark, and this microphone is so sensitive that you will hear all of this. So if you record using like this really good microphone, it's not necessarily better because it's so sensitive and it picks up all the audio. So in this case, if you have a really good microphone, you're also going to want a really good room or a studio. So yeah, this just proves that you need a lot of equipment to make a good podcast. I'm going to go back to this to this microphone now. It's a little bit easier. So yeah, and of course, if you want to do this with multiple guests, you're going to need multiple microphones. You're going to need multiple headphones. Again, as I said, you're going to need the mixer. Also, I didn't like you said, this microphone. If you're going to talk for 2 hours, you probably don't want to have to bend over to your microphone all the time. So you're going to want some kind of like boom that you can move your microphone around. So see, I mean, it starts to become a little bit expensive. You have to invest in it. Let me find my window.
It's pretty expensive setup if you're going to, record your voices, and then, you're planning to go and, stream that on the podcast channel. So it's a pretty expensive matter, right? And
yeah, exactly. So if you want to do it right, if you want to have it sound professional, you're going to have to invest, and you're going to need like quite a bit of gear, I think.
Right.
And also one extra step, if you want it to sound like a really professional, when editing your audio, as I said, you want to cut out parts that don't sound right, or content that you talked about that maybe you don't want into your podcast. Also, if you have multiple microphones with multiple guests, you're going to want to mix that together. And eventually you also want to encode that as an MP3 or an advanced audio file, because of course, if your raw recording is going to be really big, you can't upload that as a podcast. You need to get it into an MP3. And then what the professionals do is they don't just record your voice, they're also going to edit this afterwards. For example, like turn up the bass in your voice so you get this like really thick broadcast voice, like sounds really really warm, just like you hear on the radio. And they'll also do something with the audio that's called compression. So like if you talk closer or further from the microphone, the audio that you record is going to be louder or quieter, and that can be like if you're listening to that, can sound really weird, that what is going on. And so what they'll typically do is add a compressor on your audio, so that kind of like balances out the audio, so it also sounds really nice. So now you have your podcast, you went into the studio, you had all your microphones and all the equipment. So now you have the audio recorded. How are you going to get this? How are you going to make a podcast out of this? Well, basically, it always boils down to the same thing. There's a lot of platforms that can help you. I would obviously recommend Audio Harvest for it, but there is a lot of options. And they all kind of work the same because a podcast is the same thing no matter what platform you use. Podcasts use a format that's called RSS. I actually forgot what that is the abbreviation for. Somebody will probably help me out on that. But so all what these platforms do, they all do the same thing. They basically create this web stream that is in a specific format that's called RSS, and it basically tells your podcast listener or your podcast player where to find the audio, what are the different episodes in your podcast, what is the title, what is the description for each episode, what's the title and description. And this is a format that's standardized, so that's always the same. All the podcasts use the same format. I think it's mostly Apple actually that standardized this. So a lot of these things are Apple specific. So what will happen if you use any of the podcast creation and hosting platforms is you'll create an account, and the steps are always going to be basically the same. You'll have to upload a logo, you'll have to pick a title and a description, you'll have to pick the category for your podcast. So for example, if it's a sport podcast, you pick sport. If it's a business podcast, you pick business. And what this will do is will basically determine where your podcast will be shown. For example, in the Apple catalog, or if people download a podcast app and they want to search for a certain podcast, they might go in the sports categories, and if it's a sport podcast, your podcast will pick up there. The same thing for each episode you upload. You'll have to give it a title and a description. You'll have to upload the audio that you created, and then optionally add a specific logo for your episode. So, okay, now you have a podcast, but you still can't really do that much with it. People will still not find your podcast. So once you have created your podcast on a podcast hosting platform, what you will get is basically a link. And this link you can open in a podcast player, but people still don't know how to find this link. And it's not really easy to import your podcast into a podcast player. So what you'll definitely want to do is create an account on Spotify, create an account on Apple, create an account on Google, create an account on Amazon, and there's 20 others that you can use to distribute your podcast. And so you create an account, and then you'll just want to paste your podcast link basically in each of these accounts, and then your podcast will become available on Spotify, on Apple, on all the platforms where you actually register your account. So once you do that, your podcast is actually available, and if people search for it, they'll find it on Spotify and on Apple, all the platforms where you distribute your podcast. But I mean, this is a bit of work. You need to create all these accounts. You need to just copy in this link. You need to manage all these accounts. Luckily, you only have to do that once. So once you have registered your podcast on all these platforms, if you add a new episode, well, they will all, pick this up automatically. So luckily, you don't have to log into all these platforms and notify them when there's a new episode. So once you have that work done, luckily, you don't have to think about it too much anymore. But then still, if your podcast lives on Spotify or on Apple, people are not necessarily going to find it. So you still have another job, which is actually promoting your podcast. So you'll probably want to, promote the podcast on your own website, create some SEO content. So if people search for topics around your podcast, they can find your podcast. Do some emailing, promote on Facebook and on Instagram, on social platforms that you're active on. So that's also a very important part. You can't just fire a podcast episode into the internet and hope that people will find it. You still have to, do some work and make sure that people find your podcast. So now, if we look back a bit on everything what I've been saying here, I mean, if you want to make a professional podcast, you need to buy the microphones, you need to buy the headphones, you need to buy some accessories. It's going to be a bit of an investment depending on how quality minded you are. And if you buy budget stuff or more professional stuff, it's going to cost you at least a few $1,000s. And that's only the equipment. Then we're talking about a room. If you don't have a good room in your house or in your company, you probably want to rent that. And then there's also like, you just need to have the knowledge, some knowledge about audio recording, how to upload and edit your podcast. Um, there's a lot to know. Like, I am an enthusiast and I can do all of these things, but for the typical people who work in a company, if you're more business oriented or you're a marketing person, this is not necessarily ready knowledge. But the most important thing is, I think it just takes so much time. You have to find content, you have to prepare the content, you have to invite the guests in and, like, synchronize, get the guest in your room. You have to do the recording, then you have to edit the recording, you have to insert jingles, upload it to your hosting platform, distribute it to Apple and Spotify, do marketing. It's just everything. There's so much time. People really underestimate how much effort goes into creating a podcast and everything around it. It's not just like, record and upload. There's so much more to it. And then, of course, then we come to Audio Harvest. Why do we exist, and what is the value that we offer? Well, our reasoning was basically, every company typically has a blog. People invest a lot of effort in creating blog articles, both to attract an audience and to, like, be findable on the internet for SEO reasons. So if people search for content that's associated with your company, that your blog will pop up. But why not also take this content and use it as a podcast? If you want to get found on the internet, if you want to get found by search engines, you have a lot of competition. There's so much content out there. If you want to get on the first few pages of a search engine, it's really, really hard. But podcasts there's not so much content yet there. There's still a lot of opportunity there to be found in the podcasting landscape. There's a lot less competition. So you have this content, why not make a podcast out of it? And that is exactly what we do. We make it really easy. You can set up your account. In an ideal case, it will take you like under half hour to understand our product and to take all the articles from your website, import them into your Audio Harvest account, and publish them in a podcast. And also, like, distributing the podcast, you basically in Audio Harvest, you just click a button and we'll do the rest of you. We'll publish to Spotify, to Apple, to Google, and make sure that your podcast is out there. So you don't need the equipment, you don't need the knowledge, you don't need the time. We hope that we can be like a really compelling solution to take all these things that you need to create a podcast and just make them not a problem. We do the work for you. You create an account, you click some buttons, and your podcast is ready. So how do we do this? We leverage text-to-speech technology there, so AI voices basically. And to give a little bit of background on AI voices, you basically have two kinds. There's a long history of AI voices, and back in the days this existed. And what the old voices that are basically what we call the standard voices. And how this works is basically just, it's the computer looks at the words and it finds the vowels, the sounds of each word, and it converts that into audio. But typically that does not sound really that good. It sounds a little bit robotic. And if you remember the old text-to-speech voices that you heard back in the past, they were usually not so great. Also, for example, if you have a sentence, typically you will have some intonation. Your voice goes up and down, and you put some emotion in a sentence that you're telling to your audience. But the old voices, they weren't smart enough to do this, so it sounds like very monotonous and not that engaging. So that's why at Audio Harvest we just don't offer those voices. There are better possibilities now. The technology has evolved so much. In the last 5 to 10 years, the artificial intelligence has taken such big steps, and machine learning has opened so much new opportunities that there is now a second kind of voices that exists, and that's what people typically call the neural voices or the AI voices. So these voices are actually generated by machine learning and by artificial intelligence, basically. And these voices are really, really good. They know how to pronounce words differently depending on the context. They will look at the meaning of a sentence, and they will actually put some intonation in each sentence to make it very human-like. And if you have, depending on the content, of course, but typically this will sound really good. And some of the voices are really, people, it takes a while for people to notice that this is actually not a human voice. So there are many suppliers of AI voices. I think the biggest one are offered by the big cloud platforms. So you have Amazon AWS, you have the Google Cloud, Microsoft. They all have their own solutions to offer AI voices. And then apart from those, you have a lot of like smaller companies that try to make a difference by having some special features. However, there's no easy way to just use those voices. They are built for programmers. They are built for people like me who know how to use this API and who can integrate this into a product. There's not really like a user-friendly page that you can go to and say like, okay, here's my text, could you turn this into audio? It's not really built for that. So you need a product that kind of makes it easier for the end user. And so that's what we do also at Audio Harvest. We basically make this really accessible for people who want to turn their content into audio. Now I'm going to talk about some new features that we have in Audio Harvest. So before, what we did is we mostly take content from your website, and these articles from your website we're going to turn into podcast episodes. However, what a lot of people have been asking for is also to make content that is not necessarily a web page and add that to their podcast. So we added this new feature that's basically allows you to create a custom article. So we have a page where you pick a title and a description, you give it some kind of label, and then there's a content field where you can fill in basically whatever you want. This could be a text that you type. This could be something that you have in a Word document or in a PDF, or something that you have the content. You can just copy paste this, put this into an article, maybe edit it a bit, and press save, and then it becomes an article in Audio Harvest, and it behaves exactly as your other articles in your Audio Harvest account. So you can also publish it to your podcast, and this allows you to take content from more sources than just your website and add it to your Audio Harvest podcast. Related to that is also, we had a lot of people saying like, we really love your product, and we really love the articles that are generated by Audio Harvest, but sometimes we have like an interview that we record, we have some actual audio, and we'd like to also add this to our podcasts. How can we do this? So what we did is we added a new feature that is basically audio upload. So this works a little bit like similar to the write article feature, but instead of like writing your content, you pick a title, you pick a description, you give it a label, and then you just upload your audio. And then also, again, this becomes an article in the Audio Harvest platform. You can publish it, you can add it to your podcast, very similar to all the other articles that live in your account. So to answer that need, we created this feature. And actually, I think, Dominic, I don't know if you want to add anything more to this. I think I came to some slides.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I can chat through these slides if you want, quite quickly. So just talking a little bit about the platform, and as Dieter says, is what we're trying to do is to make businesses' lives easier. So the technology does all the work of finding content, creating audio content, and distributing that in really ways. And we use AI and algorithms to actually do the work for you, and we create a super simple self-serve UI that you can use. If you go to the next slide, Dieter, we can kind of move through these. And why is that compelling? Well, First reason is just the cost. Is using technology versus creating and distributing content manually. There's a significant cost difference. To employ someone for an average size business and manage and create that content, you're looking at $50,000 a year. With our SaaS platform, it's just a few dollars a month, and you're up and running. The second aspect is the speed and scalability of it. Essentially, we create and distribute great audio content on the fly, and what that means is that you have an always-on audio marketing department doing the work for you without even needing to employ people. And then the final one is that our tech enables you to be much more discoverable. So we distribute across all the major points and ensure that you are found in search and across social. So it really is a great way to amplify your audio marketing and get to your customers and influence them. And go to the next slide. And this is just an overview of the essentials of our platform. So we have our own search engine that looks for relevant content when we transform content from a client's website. We then have our own algorithms to clean that content and transform that into audio. And then in real time, we distribute that to all the major platforms, as mentioned before, as well as ensuring that it's very discoverable. We also work in all the major languages, just listed a few below there, such as French, Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, but over 50 different languages. So we cover all the major ones and can do others on demand as required. Go to the next slide. Yeah, and then we're just going to go into how we create value. So we can just go straight through to the next slide. I think we're just going to go through some examples. So I'm just going to try and show you a wide variety of examples. So this is us working with a multinational. So this is Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Solutions. So for them, we're creating a podcast that speaks to really senior decision makers and influencers there. Next one. Need to click through to the next one. This one is more of a startup focused on events. So this is Girls into Coding. And essentially this one is great for promoting events and lots of events. And they use our podcast to help them get people to attend their events, which is how they essentially make money. And it's a great driver for that. Mary's Meals is a global charity, and for them, they have great human interest stories. So it's just a great way to engage their audience. They get really high engagement. But also what they can do is that they are using it to promote donations. For non-profits, mobile is the biggest channel for donations. So essentially putting a pre and post message in your podcast saying, if you would like to donate, is very powerful. And then moving on, we work with lots of PR companies. So for them, they're all about communicating and distributing content, and they just see us as their route through to audio. So they use us as a white label partner, essentially, to get all of their brands out to their customers. Go to the next one. And then we work with lots of technology businesses. Fortunately, we've had lots of customers come from PitchGround, but we also work with lots of other customers. So this is an Australian business that we work with. They're in the data insights business. So they're after a very, very specific high-end audience. And so they really use the platform to find that audience and target them well. And then I think the last one is an outlier, actually. So most of our business is B2B, but we do work with B2C businesses as well. So this is a drinks brand in the beverage space, London Vermouth. And for them, we've used the technology to create the cocktail hour. So every week they come out with a new cocktail. And if you're passionate about cocktails, you're going to listen in and work out what cocktail you're going to show to your friends and families on a Friday night. And that's got quite a loyal following. And if we just go through, I think they were the examples. And then we just move back into D2. It's just going to do a very quick demonstration of the platform to round out.
Yeah, how are we on time? I'm going to have to switch my sharing screen here anyway. So yeah, just really quick, I'm going to recap our platform. I think many people might already be familiar. But so what you'll typically do is you'll create an account and we'll guide you through the onboarding. We'll ask you for your website, and then we'll basically try to find the different sections on your website and find the content on your website. And we'll also ask you to select the voice. So we offer many different languages, and for each language you have a choice of different voices. You can preview these voices, and basically pick the one that fits your brand or fits your website or fits your image the best. I'm now showing a demo from our account, which is from the Audio Harvest website. We basically manually set up these sections, but typically if you, for example, enter a WordPress website, we're going to find all the different sections that are on your website. If it's not a WordPress website, we're going to scan your website and try to find like the logical parts of your website, and you'll be able to basically toggle these on or off from where you want to get the content on your website. And then one of the main pages in our tool is basically the article list. So once we found the content on your website, we're going to import all these articles into the Audio Harvest account, and you'll see a list of articles here. And then you can inspect all of these articles. You can look at the content. If you want to edit something, you click the edit button. You can change the title, you can change the description, you can change the content of the article. You just press save and the changes will apply. And then if you're happy with it, all you have to do is press a button and we'll upload the audio or create the audio of the article. Once you have the audio, you go to the podcast setup, and here you will create a podcast. So again, very straightforward. You upload your logo, you pick a title, you pick a description, you choose the applicable category of your podcast, you press save, and you have your podcast is created. And then if you're happy with your podcast, here you can inspect the different episodes of your podcast. You can inspect the title and description. And of course, this podcast is already published, but then you just press the button, and within a day, your podcast will be available on Spotify, on Google, and on Apple, of course. Some other features that I'm just very quickly going to go through. So we have the pre and post roll. So if you want to have some kind of call to action or some kind of welcome message read out before or after every podcast episode, this is where you can enter this text. You save it, and for all episodes you create, this is basically going to be the pre-roll is going to be read out before the content of your article, and the post roll is going to be read as some kind of outro of your article. And then the features I talked about during the presentations, here we have the create article feature. You pick a title, description, you enter your content, you press save, and you have a new article that you can upload as a podcast. And then again, similarly, the upload audio functionality, again, title, description, you take your audio file, you upload the audio file, and that's basically it. And then, of course, we have some reporting pages, so you can look at some graphs, you can look up some numbers for the podcasts. We also have a widget that you can place on your website. So if people open your website and go to an article, they can just click play and they can listen to the article. We have a WordPress plugin also. So if you have a WordPress website, we make it really easy to add this player widget automatically to all your pages. There's instructions on our website. You download the WordPress plugin, you install it, and you automatically have the Audio Harvest player on your website. And I think that's where I'll wrap up as a very, very quick recap of our product. Dominic, anything to add?
No, that's great. I think that's a wrap.
Back to you, Udit.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for explaining everything about the podcast. And I like the way you explained us the different, actions that we need to take while producing your podcast. And it's a whole lot of things that we need to take care of. For example, we need to use the right gear setup, we need to use the right room setup. Then the room is not proper, then you need to go to the studio and record yourself. Then you need to use the costly mics, the recording devices, and it's a hell lot of work. It's a really, really, I was just underestimating the work behind publishing a podcast, but it's really a lot of work and a lot of investment. And over and above, you need to put lot of time to produce a single podcast, right? And with Audio Harvest, you can simply, create one podcast within a 20 or 30 minutes. It's a simple job. No need to buy high-end devices. No need to, sit on your computer, do all sort of editings. Removing background noises from your recordings, then back and forth editing, adding your, the background music into your podcast or the music, hell lot of things, right? And you can save all these hassles with Audio Harvest, and you are just gonna invest only few bucks, right? So it's like hiring a professional studio by spending few bucks, right? So no need to invest thousands of dollars, no need to spend hell lot of time to to creating content, then producing those audios and publishing across the podcast channels and maintaining it, hosting it. It's a hell lot of work. Right? So reduce the cost of podcast with Audio Harvest. You can reduce the cost of broadcast creation and distribution from the market average. I can say 50,000 to $1 lakh to one-time minimal cost. I can say, right? So if you're going for a professional one, right, and create a podcast in minutes and allow Audio Harvest software to do all sort of heavy liftings in terms of podcast creation, distribution, management. So it's not only you're just recording a piece of content, or else I can say the converting your content into audio, but the Audio Harvest does heavy lifting for you. It's not only creating, it helps you the creation process, it helps you in the distribution process, it helps you in the managing process, right? So once everything is ready inside your Audio Harvest platform, you just need to click one button, publish, and blah, voila. Your audio is distributed, your podcast is distributed across all the channels that you have selected inside the platform. And if you want to, for example, if you want to unpublish it within a single click, you can unpublish it from the different platforms altogether, right? And it's a very an awesome piece of software that these guys have made, and the demonstration that Gator has given, it's I'm really impressed about that, because you can see the hassle, right? You need to plug in all sort of devices to record a professional sounding quality of your recordings. Then you need to go and install a heavy software to produce or remove the background voice and noise. Ah,
Mm.
it's a lot of work, a lot of work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then also it's the amplification and discoverability. So being
Yeah.
able to get all of your audio content across social, podcast, web through the touch of the button is very, very powerful. So, people come into us for the cost saving, but they stay with us because of the ability to amplify and reach all of these different platforms, which they can't do manually. It takes a long time to do. And then finally, because of the algorithms, it becomes their audio marketing department for them. So, which I think you see all the different. We don't just serve businesses in one category; it's a wide variety of categories, which is reassuring because it means there's a lot of different use cases for the technology. Which is always, if you're going to do a SaaS business, you want to make sure it appeals to lots of verticals.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And for this kind of professional setups, you're just going to spend some bucks, right? Let me go over uh, the deal page and show you the plans and the pricing that we have. Uh, okay, so the plan A offers the 39 bucks. You just have to invest 39 bucks, and you'll be getting 5,000 words per month, and most of all the features that's Audio Harvest is allowing us, like automatically create files and distribute podcasts across Spotify and Google Play, right? And you can basically you can use unlimited podcast episodes, embed audio player on your website, on your WordPress website. They have the WordPress plugin as well, right? So it's easy to to embed those podcasts on your page, on your blog, on your on your profile or portfolio. It's simply you just have to click a few clicks, just make few clicks, and within a 20 or 15 minutes your whole thing is ready to go publish across all the podcast channels, right? So this is the plan A, which costs you only $39. This is an insane deal that that we are offering through the Peach Ground. You just I can go and easily purchase, because the problem, the cost, that the time that I'm going to save by using this software is a worth is a worth, right? I'm not getting a words to describe the problem, and the worth that I'm going to get it from this deal. And the second one is the plan B, that is $75, in which you'll be getting 12,000 words per month, and all the features that have listed in the plan A. And here you'll be getting 4 unique podcast series. So what is a podcast series, Data and Dominic? So what is this feature?
Podcast series is so you have podcast 1, which could be on how to do SEO marketing. So you're an SEO marketing business, and so the first one is all around SEO, but you actually do email marketing and you want to sell that as a product. So you go, I need to have another podcast series out there, so I'm going to do one on email as well. So I'm going to communicate to people who want to buy my email products. And then you go, actually, I want to start a business in the social space as well. There's lots of great business I can be doing there. So I'm going to do my third in the series, which is going to be on social. So it's just a great way to either reach different audiences or promote more of your services to different audiences. So
okay, so kind of creating a playlist inside the platform.
Yeah, different podcast series inside the platform. Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, got it. Then we have plan C, that is ultimate plan, $397 for lifetime, in which you will be getting 30,000 words per month. And here you will have unlimited podcast series. For example, you can create a playlist, and you can, for example, just now Dominic has explained, for example, you are creating podcast for SEO stuff, right? So you can embed all those into a single series, and follow up, you can have multiple series for touching up multiple subjects, right? Then these are the plans, guys. Go to pitchground.com, and you'll find the audio harvest, and plans and pricing is really insane, and the value that you're going to get it from this one is very, very, very very insane, right? So $39 for lifetime for plan E, $75 for plan B, and $397 for plan C. So these are the plans and pricing. If you have any questions regarding the plans and pricing and the tool, so feel free to comment inside the comment box, so that we are live and we can answer all your questions and the queries. If you have anything for us, for the tool, or for the pricing that we have listed on the pitchground.com.
That's great.
So let me share the link as well. So everybody is aware that we are running this deal on pitchground.com. So still, let me share the link. Okay, so it's displaying on the video itself. You need to go to pitchground.com/products/audio harvest. So this is the link. And if you have any questions, I'll just repeat again. If you have any questions, just tag us, tag Data or Dominic or me, so that we can solve all your questions and the queries regarding the plans, regarding the audio harvest tool. And we are happy to onboard you inside the platform. So that's it from my end. If you have anything to share, Dominic and Data, we would like to hear that.
No, just to say, Swapna, I really appreciate all your help in organising that and putting it together. It's really appreciated. And thanks for everyone for listening. Many thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for taking your time, precious time, and demonstrating the tool. I would really appreciate again, Dieter, the way he demonstrated the different set of environment, that how you can record yourself by using different tools, different gadgets. So it's pretty tricky, So that I really liked it, and thank you for sharing some valuable information throughout the slides. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for watching us, and we'll be seeing you in the next webinar. Till the time, take care, be happy, keep improving 1% every day. Have a good day.
Cheers. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.